Young British people love to jump on a trend, so when we go to shops in cities, we see this revival of the past, because vintage is the way in which we express our culture and remember iconic moments and people in time. Vintage is a playground for experimentation, so I want to know how it's still inspiring today.
Retro, short for retrospective or vintage, usually refers to clothing that imitates the style of a previous era. Over 70% of the world's population uses second-hand or vintage clothing today. The rise of vintage is clear, and so I turned to vintage collector Dan Shah to find out why. So when was the first time that you first saw the vintage shops and things?
I think I was just passing by the custard factory because it stands out, and I was just passing by and with my dad in the car, and I thought, we'll just stop here. Went into these vintage stores. They look quite old and retro-y. They stand out, and as soon as I went in there, it's like I went into the shop and it was like a time machine. I was just flicking through these clothes I've never seen before. It was just an amazing experience.
So why is vintage important?
I think it celebrates individuality and shapes your character when you're a young person and lets you express yourself. The biggest factor of why it's so appealing is because it's cheap, compared to the retail, and it looks slightly different because of the retro design.
So what kind of trends are in at the moment?
One would be sportswear.
Yeah.
With the Ralph Lauren's, Tommy Hilfiger's, Elise jackets, Fila. I think a lot of it came from, the kids in the casual movement in the 80s, and then you got people wearing it in the 90s, grunge, Britpop.
Yeah.
So.
You see, some people wouldn't class the 90s as vintage because they, so many people have still lived in it. I mean, I was born in the 90s, so they wouldn't say that 90s is vintage, but yet they're still classing it as vintage.
Look, at the end of the day, if you compare something from the 90s, like a track top, can show its equivalent now, you'll definitely notice that it's got a big difference.
Who would you say inspires and influences vintage clothing?
Well, right now, because of all the sportswear, I'd say for the lads, it was all Britpop, and before that it was the Roses.
Yeah.
So in Britpop, I guess you've got the Gallaghers, you've got Damon Albarn from Blur, just stuff like that. They wore a lot of sportswear. Adidas was quite a prominent brand. It was always shown to you. Even their influences influence us. You've got the subcultures of the mods and the rockers, but in England the mods are always remembered. They always stand out. Their parkas, the knitwear, the pressed trousers, the bowling shoes, and even that you can find in a vintage shop if you just look carefully. You'll find that.
Yeah. So what does the vintage industry want to achieve in the long run?
I think it wants to achieve I think we just want to keep celebrating our heritage in clothing. It's also recycling, which is another massive benefit.
How do you envision vintage in 10 years?
I think we'll struggle to find some outfits, but at the end of the day, modern designs are inspired by vintage designs now, so I guess you'll just get a copy of what we've got. I mean, we still got a lot of icons which have inspired the big brands now. I mean, the late Bowie, he wore a lot of elaborate clothing, a lot of exotic patterns in that.